2 brides, 1 groom, and a secret that turned a wedding into a storm of truth. They said it was a celebration, but what unfolded inside that hall made every heartbeat freeze. 2 identical faces walked down the same aisle, and 1 police officer stood trembling between past and punishment. When love, guilt, and destiny meet under the same roof, only one truth can survive. What really happened that night on Pine Street? Who was the woman he promised to save? And why did both brides carry the same heart, the same name, the same scar? This is not just a story, it's a confession wrapped in rain, forgiveness, and fate. Watch till the very end, because the truth will not whisper, it will strike. Broken heart if this story touched your heart, if you believe love and truth still matter. Hit that subscribe button, not just to support, but to walk with us into every story that dares to feel this deeply. Sparkle subscribe now because some stories are too real to be missed. The rain paused right before the processional. The air held the smell of wet asphalt and gardenias. I wiped my palms on my duty belt. The leather squeaked. The hall lights hummed with a soft electrical throat. Chandeliers threw coin-bright circles on the floor. Guests whispered in neat rows, like reeds in a slow river. A violin tested a high note and let it shiver. My radio hissed, then fell to a thin breath. "Stand visible," the lieutenant had said. "No hero moves. No surprises." I stood at the back, uniform pressed, badge heavy as a stone on a string. The aisle ran like a polished lake between the pews. A white runner cut a straight path to a mirrored arch. I saw my own reflection inside that arch. A uniform caught under lace and light. I tasted copper at the back of my tongue. My collar itched. The perfume of lilies kept drifting in waves. On the front pew, a child folded a program into a paper boat. Gold foil letters flashed on the cover. 2 names for the brides. No name for a groom. Murmurs rolled like distant thunder. Someone filmed on a phone, arms lifted, elbows shaking. The organ found a steady pulse. The double doors opened with a silk sigh. The first bride stepped in, veil thin as breath. White silk. Pearl buttons that ran like a spine down her back. The second bride stepped in beside her. Same dress. Same veil. Same bouquet of pale roses with silver leaves. Twin strides. Twin stillness. Twin faces ghosted by lace. A reporter bent over a notebook, pen scratching hard. I felt the floor under my boots, solid and slick. I counted exits on reflex. Left door near the catering table. Right door near the soundboard. Windows sealed by rain. The mirrored arch made 3 of each person. It made 3 of me. The brides paused halfway down. They did not look at the altar. They looked at me. Air thinned inside my lungs. The violin slid into a song I knew by muscle memory. Maya loved that song. I pressed the St. Michael medallion under my vest. The metal felt cold. Pew 3, left side, held an older man with a stiff smile. On his wrist sat a pale band where a watch once lived. A tan line from a cuff holster. I watched his fingers drum once on his knee. My radio clicked. Static rattled. Silence returned like a lid on a pot. The officiant cleared his throat and opened a leather book. Pages flashed with tabs that looked like color-coded evidence flags. Words rolled over the crowd in a measured voice. Welcome. Witness. Vows. The brides took a single synchronized step. The roses brushed their wrists. Petals trembled. A glint hid among the stems. A lens the size of a pinhead. I shifted my weight and felt the floorboards complain. A woman in green dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief that smelled like cloves. The child with the paper boat unfolded it again. He flipped the program and frowned. He turned his seat and held it out to me with 2 fingers. I took it. My name stared back from the center panel. Officer Noah Hale. In serif letters. Centered. Groom. Heat climbed my neck like a hand. I blinked to clear a sting that felt like smoke. This was a sting, I thought. A set. A cover. A joke with teeth. At the altar, the officiant lifted his book higher. On the spine, I saw stamped letters. Case log, Pine Street collision. My throat folded on itself. The violin thinned to a single string and grew tight. Every sound wore a velvet glove. The brides reached the front row and split to either side. They faced one another. They lifted their veils at the same time. Two faces looked back. I felt the world drop half an inch and lock again.
Maya.
Maya with the crescent scar near the left eyebrow. Maya with the tiny chipped tooth, second from the front. Maya with the same steady gaze that survived the winter of our first year. Both of them. Both the same. The lilies flooded the hall with sweetness. It turned cloying and thick. My tongue went numb as if from a dental swab. The older man in pew 3 stopped drumming. His jaw squared. The reporter forgot her pen and let it hang by the notebook. I heard my heart in my ears. I saw a fleck of mascara on one veil, near the cheekbone. I saw the same fleck on the other. Perfect symmetry. Unnatural symmetry. The officiant began to read names and dates that belonged to my case files. He read my badge number like a blessing. Guests shifted in their seats like birds on a wire. The mirrored arch held 3 Mayas. It held 3 of me. My hands wanted a grip. They found the edge of the pew behind me and pinched a groove. The wood felt damp under my fingers. I breathed through my teeth. Gardenias, floor wax, strawberry hairspray, wet wool. The second bride stepped closer to the aisle. Her bouquet bent toward the light. Tucked among the stems were paper strips. Tiny strips, curled like confetti. A line of type showed there. Public Safety Incident Report. Pine Street. 1 fatality. I had read those words in a throat of firelight under a highway lamp. I had heard glass settle into the seeded grass. I had held the steering wheel imprint like a brand on my palms. I shut the memory and kept my eyes open. The first bride spoke. Her voice was Maya's voice. Even and warm. It slid into me like a key. "You promised," she said. The second bride repeated the line with the same breath and the same pitch. "You promised." The guests turned their faces toward me, as if pulled by a wire. A hush rolled forward and stopped at my boots. My radio light winked but made no sound. One of the groomsmen touched his jacket and revealed the corner of a ballistic plate. A stagehand behind the speakers wore a deputy's haircut. A camera hid in the birdcage full of white doves. My fingers found the chain around my neck. The ring on that chain had a nick from a gravel edge. The nick cut my thumb now. Pain woke me like a slap. I stepped into the aisle. The runner cushioned my boots. Each step made a small sigh. The brides watched without blinking. The officiant watched without breathing. The violinist watched with the bow hovering. I reached the front pew and stopped. I smelled brake fluid under the floral sugar. I smelled burned plastic under the candle smoke. I lifted my eyes to the twin faces. I waited for a trick of light to break. Nothing broke. A boy in a small suit walked toward me with a pillow. A ring lay on the pillow in a silver groove. My ring. The one I lost on the night of the crash. The metal looked colder than winter water. The boy held it up and smiled without his eyes.
"Take it," he said.
My fingers hovered, then closed. The ring bit my skin with a perfect circle. The second bride tilted her bouquet and showed a badge nestled among the roses. It matched my badge. It had my number. I felt the low growl of sirens outside the hall. I felt the doors behind me lock with a soft magnet click. The exit sign over the right door flickered and held steady. The old man in pew 3 reached into his jacket and froze there, hand on leather. The reporter raised her phone with an unsteady wrist. The officiant turned a page and revealed a photograph sleeve. My cruiser at Pine Street. My shadow on the hood. The first bride lifted her veil fully and let it fall behind her shoulders. Her eyes gleamed like whetstone. She held out her left hand, palm up, steady as a witness under oath.
"Put it on," she said.
The second bride held out the same hand, same angle, same pale line across the lifeline.
"Put it on," she said.
My tongue felt like paper. My chest felt wrapped in wire. The violin re-entered with a hush of bow hair. Static crawled along my scalp like heat lightning. I raised the ring. My vision tightened at the edges, then cleared hard, like a lens wiped clean. The first bride's breath reached me. Mint and sugar. The second bride's breath reached me. Mint and sugar. Voices formed at the back of the hall. Doors thumped once. Steps closed in behind my shoulder. A hand gripped my wrist. A hand gripped my wrist.
Skin dry.
Grip steady. No tremor. I turned my head by inches. Lieutenant Carter stood there in dress blues. His eyes looked like slate under rain. He did not blink. Release, I said. He did not release. His fingers pressed the tendons near my pulse. A silent metronome.
You will listen, he said.
His breath carried coffee and winter. Behind him, two ushers shifted to reveal holsters. Plain clothes. Badges clipped inside jackets. The room held its breath like a lung before a dive. The brides remained still. Their veils hung like low clouds over a line of dark hills. Carter leaned close. Voice like gravel under a thin cloth. There is something you have to know. My mouth went dry. The ring in my hand cut a bright circle into my palm. Blood pooled under the edge in a perfect crescent. Carter nodded toward the mirrored arch. Watch, he said. The violin fell away. A speaker near the arch crackled. The mirror darkened. A projector woke with a moth sound. Light stitched across the glass and built an image. Pine Street. Sodium lamps. Rain turning the asphalt into a river of coins. My cruiser sat skewed across two lanes. Airbag dust like fog. The arch showed my hands. They shook. They steadied. They held a small shape. A locket. Silver with a dent. The screen showed a woman on the curb. Face pale. Hair wet with blood and rain.
Maya.
She breathed with effort and reached for me. Her lips formed my name. No sound in the image. I felt sound in my bones, anyway. My throat tightened until it burned. The arch shifted to show a second woman. Same face. Same eyes. A scar near the left brow. She stood behind the ambulance tape with a blanket around her shoulders. She watched me with a stillness that felt older than the street.
Twins.
I felt the truth slide into place with a click. 2 Mayas on Pine Street. 2 Mayas at the altar. The projector froze on my face. Eyes wide. Mouth set. Carter's grip loosened. He stepped back by a half shoe. This was recorded by a traffic cam, he said. His voice did not reach the guests. His lips barely moved. We pulled the footage from the city archive last night. You made a decision that night. You chose one to ride in your cruiser. You left the other for the second unit. Standard protocol under strain. The bride on the left lowered her bouquet. She raised her veil with both hands. Her face was clean. Her lip held a new split like a fresh line of ink. She looked at me and held my gaze. You said my name first, she said. Her voice filled the space like water filling a jar.
Maya.
The right bride lifted her veil. Same face. Same breath. Her eyes were colder by a degree. She spoke. You walked away from me first. She did not blink when she said it. My heart beat hard against the bone cage. The child with the program folded it again. Another boat. This one smaller. He set it on the aisle runner and watched it rest. The reporter mouthed the word twin. Her pen trembled against the paper. Carter cleared his throat. We are not here for a wedding, he said. We are here for a reckoning. His words struck the chandeliers and came back softer. A murmur rolled across the rows and died at the steps. The officiant closed the leather book. He laid both hands on the cover. He did not move again. The old man in pew 3 lifted his hand away from leather. He showed empty fingers. He raised both palms. He stood. He faced me. His voice carried the grit of a man who worked with steel. I am their father, he said. My name is Rajesh Patel. He took one step into the aisle. His shoes whispered over the runner. You promised me the truth on Pine Street, Officer Hale. You promised the truth would not be buried under badges and forms. His eyes filled and did not spill. Which truth did you mean? I had no answer ready. I had only a flood. The hall swayed like a ship on a low swell. I felt the seams of my uniform dig into my shoulders. I tasted metal again. The brides moved at last. They took 3 steps toward me. In sync. The crowd leaned toward the center, like iron toward a magnet. The air dropped in temperature. I saw my breath ghost out and vanish. The first bride opened her hand. A small silver locket lay on her palm. Oval. Dented. The second bride opened her hand. The same locket. Same dent. I reached out without meaning to. My fingers hovered above the left locket. Heat rose from the metal. I could feel it without contact. The right locket felt cold enough to burn. Choose, the left bride said. Her tone held no threat. Only a weight. Choose, the right bride said. Her tone held a wind that blew against bone. My knees felt hollow. My spine felt made of thread. I thought of Pine Street. I thought of headlights like white coins thrown into black water. I thought of the world narrowing to a keyhole. I thought of the sound I heard hours later when the station hallway emptied. Knuckles on a locker door.
Soft.
Steady. Forgiveness sounds like that. I had thought then. Maybe I had been wrong. Carter spoke near my ear again. We traced the report you filed. We traced the edits. He inhaled. He exhaled. Someone altered timestamps. Someone trimmed radio logs. He did not say my name. He did not need to. The brides waited. The father watched. The old wood of the pews creaked under the collective shift of thought. I closed my hand around the ring. Edges bit deeper. I felt the small circle print itself into my skin like a brand. The violinist lowered the bow. The bow hair brushed the strings once and left a faint echo. I lifted my chin. I looked at the left bride. I spoke her name. Maya, I said. She answered with a blink. I looked at the right bride. I spoke the same name. She did not blink. A siren wailed and then cut off outside, as if someone had put a knife into a cable. Carter's radio hissed alive. A voice came through. Unit at the rear door. Package delivered. I felt the back of my neck crawl. What package? Carter did not respond.
He watched the brides.
He watched me. The father stepped closer. His hands shook now. He reached into his jacket and brought out a small velvet box. He opened it. Inside lay a key. Old brass. Teeth like a city skyline. He held it out. This opens the storage unit on Ferry Street, he said. You saw it on the crash inventory. You signed for it. You never used it. Inside is the dash cam hard drive you wrote off as melted. Heat rose into my face until my eyes watered. I reached for the key. The father pulled it back a fraction. Tell me first, he said. His voice thinned. Which of my daughters did you pull from the street yourself? Which one did you leave to the second unit? I could hear breath all around me. People breathed in small, careful sips. No one coughed. No one moved a shoe. I felt my spine straighten as if pulled by invisible wire. I opened my mouth. My tongue felt heavy. A door boomed in the corridor. Footsteps ran. High heels hit marble like drumsticks. A woman burst into the hall. She wore a gray blazer and a badge on a chain. Internal Affairs. Her hair clung to her forehead in damp strands. She carried a slim black case. She did not look at the guests. She looked only at me. She snapped the case open. A stack of photographs lay inside, clipped by a binder claw. She held up the first picture. Pine Street again. A frame from an angle no camera on the block should hold. A body cam angle. Cold light caught a reflection on my badge. The picture captured my hands again. They reached for a wrist with a hospital band. The wrist belonged to the woman on the curb. The woman with the dented locket. The left bride. The second picture showed my face turned away from the other twin. She looks directly at me in the photograph. Her mouth forms a word. A short word.
No.
The third picture showed my cruiser door. It opened. It closed. The woman in the street rode away. The other woman waited in the rain. The case officer lowered the photographs. She did not blink. You drove past the Ferry Street turn to the hospital, she said. You stopped for 72 seconds under the West Line Bridge. You cannot see it on traffic cams. You can see it on your own dash reflection. You took off your ring there. You put it on a chain. You told dispatch the road was blocked. The room tilted in slow motion. I saw myself tip with it and hold the rail of the world. The brides watched. Their faces held no anger. Their faces held something worse. Expectation. A dove in the birdcage shook its feathers and made a sound like silk torn by a pin. Carter's grip found my wrist again. Not to restrain. To steady. He leaned toward my ear.
Speak, he said.
His voice did not press. It invited. My lips moved. No sound came at first. I closed my eyes. Darkness held the color of old brews and engine smoke. I opened them again to the bright hall and the snow of veils and the flood of lilies. I felt every beat in my neck. I tasted every chemical in the air. I saw a thin thread of ash on one candle. I heard a small drop of wax touch brass and harden. I drew a breath that scraped my ribs. I said a name. The left bride flinched like a bird that had understood a shadow. The right bride did not move. The father swallowed and closed his eyes. The room shifted again. The mirror shimmered as if heat had leaned against it. An image formed that looked like a doorway down a long, bright corridor. A figure walked toward the frame with the slow certainty of someone who knows exactly where pain sits. The figure carried a folder. The figure wore a white coat. The figure raised her head. Her face was not Maya. Her face was not mine. Her face was the face that signed the death certificate on Pine Street. She stepped into the arch light and started to speak. She stepped into the arch light and started to speak. Her badge read Dr. Evelyn Marrow. Her voice carried a soft clinic hush. It still filled every corner. I am the attending physician who signed the report for Pine Street, she said. I saw both sisters that night. I saw you. She opened the folder. Paper whispered like wings. Rain blew against the windows and made a low drum. She lifted one sheet. Vitals for patient A, she said. Pulse, thready. Oxygen shallow. Concussion suspected. Lacerations to the scalp. She lifted another sheet. Vitals for patient B. Stable.
Bruised.
Alert. She closed the folder halfway and looked at me. You carried patient A into tree of yourself, she said. Your arms shook. You kept saying one name. You repeated it like a prayer you were afraid to forget.
Maya.
My grip tightened around the ring until my knuckles went white. The left bride breathed in like a diver who had found the surface. The right bride did not move. Dr. Marrow raised a photograph clipped to the back of the folder. Your body cam captured this, she said. You did not submit the file. You leaned over patient A. You pressed your forehead to her temple and told her to stay. You told her not to sleep. You told her she would see her sister again. You promised. The word shook the air like a tuning fork. The father pressed the key box to his chest. Carter stood beside me and said nothing. Internal Affairs held her case like a blade. The violinist set the instrument down. Strings hummed against wood for a heartbeat and died. Dr. Marrow lowered the photograph. She turned to the brides. One of you woke in recovery at dawn, she said. One of you woke to a field of white and a curtain drawn half open. You asked for your sister. You asked for the officer with the ring on a chain. No one answered then.
The staff changed.
The chart traveled. The story broke into pieces and scattered like glass. She faced me again. I signed a certificate because a heart stopped at 2:14, she said. I signed it because I watched a monitor flatten and refused to climb. But there was more. Her eyes cut to the mirrored arch. The image shifted to show a hallway painted in hospital beige. A nurse rolled a cart. A figure passed the doorway. Uniform. Ring on a chain. My face. He moved like a man in a dream. He moved like me. Dr. Marrow held the pointer in her hand and tapped the figure. Time stamp reads 2:17, she said. 3 minutes after the death mark. You were still there. You walked to the family room. You did not knock. You sat in the dark and held your head. You did not see me at the threshold. I heard what you said into the empty air. You asked forgiveness you had no right to request. You offered a name and then swallowed it back. The guests leaned forward as one body. The old man's jaw worked as if he chewed a hard seed. The right bride found a breath and let it go slowly. She focused on the doctor.
Speak it now, she said.
Dr. Mara watched me with a calm that did not waver. The locket, she said. That dent is not from the collision. It is older. It is from a time when the sisters wrestled under a mango tree on their family trip. One fell. One caught the other. The locket struck a root. Both laughed until they cried. She held out 2 photographs. One showed the twins at 12 under a tree. One showed the dent. Identical. The left bride took in air, with a tremor. Her eyes shone. The right bride's throat moved once. She tightened her grip on Rose's until a thorn pricked skin. A bead of red brightened the pale. The birdcage rattled as the doves hopped to new perches. Feathers flashed like dropped handkerchiefs. I stood inside a ring of breath and heat. My pulse climbed the ladder in my neck and reached my eyes. Carter's fingers eased at my wrist. He let go. He was not holding me anymore. He was holding the moment steady. Dr. Marrow set the folder on the podium. She lifted the stethoscope from her neck and placed it between the lockets. Her voice softened. I listened to both of you that night, she said. I pressed this to each chest. I heard the same rhythm. I heard the same fear. I heard 2 lives tuned to one another like 2 strings on one instrument. She turned to me. You heard it too. You made a choice that every witness in this room would have made in terror and devotion. You chose the one bleeding out. You chose the one who felt your name inside her breath. You chose the one your hands already knew how to lift. The father's eyes filled and finally spilled. Tears made bright paths over weathered skin. He stepped into the aisle, closer to me than he had been. His voice scraped like a struck match.
Say which, he said.
Say her birth order. Say her mark that the camera cannot see. Say it so, I believe you, and I end this night either with rage or with rest. My mouth opened. The word rose. A footstep echoed from the back doors. A new figure entered and drew the air with him. He wore a charcoal suit. He wore a pastor's collar. He wore a bandage over the knuckles of his right hand. He walked like a man who had known a storm and had decided not to run. He crossed himself once and stopped near the birdcage. His voice carried a river-stone weight. I baptized the twins, he said. I buried a young woman named Maya Patel after the Pine Street accident. I buried her with a ring pressed into her palm. A ring on a chain. I pressed it there because a man brought it to me before dawn. He said the morgue had closed. He said the family would not accept his face. He could not enter the room. He asked me to place it on her so his promise would not stay unpaid. The hall answered with a murmur that had shape. I felt my legs want to fold. I made them stay. The pastor turned toward me. You brought me a ring in the chapel under the emergency wing, he said. You wept like a child and did not hide it. You said the chain belonged to you and the ring belonged to her. You said the chain would live on your neck and the ring would live on her hand. You asked me to witness a marriage that life could not keep. My vision narrowed and then widened.
Heat climbed.
Cold fell. Both lived at once under my skin. The brides stood shoulder to shoulder now. They looked less like mirror and more like 2 shores of one river. The right bride lifted her chin. Her eyes had a new fire in them now. She addressed the pastor. Whom did you bury? Use her full name. Use the name my sister and I wrote on the inside of our notebooks when we were 8. His eyes softened at the corners. Maya Aditi Patel, he said. Firstborn by 6 minutes. He looked at me again. You carried the younger into Tria. You saved the one who would go on breathing. You brought me the ring for the elder. You honored both with one act and one cowardice. You saved one. You hid from the other truth. The room absorbed the words. The mirrors did not return the image. They held a gray field like sky before lightning. The father lowered the brass key. He placed it in my palm. His hand shook against mine. He spoke like a man who had reached a cliff and seen a bridge appear.
Bring me the hard drive, he said.
Bring me the minutes that hurt. Let the truth sit in my house like an honest guest. Then look at my daughters and tell them what you have not told them. Tell them that love is sometimes a rescue and sometimes a wound. Tell them you were both.
He stepped back.
The internal affairs officer lifted her case and closed it softly. She did not put it away. She watched me with a guard's patience and a midwife's focus. Carter straightened his collar. He had the look of a man who had run out of orders and found duty instead. Dr. Marrow turned one page in the folder. The thin paper made a crisp sound. She read one last line. "Patient be refused discharge at sunrise," she said. She walked to the chapel. She stayed there for 20 minutes. She left a note on the pew. The right bride's mouth parted. Her voice carried no anger now. Only ache. What did I write? Dr. Marrow looked at the line. She spoke it clearly. I will not forgive what I do not understand. I will not understand what I never hear. The words touched the air like snow that did not melt. The room held still. My ribs felt bound. The ring cut one more circle into my skin. I looked at the twins. I looked at the father. I looked at the pastor. I found the internal affairs officer and saw that she had moved 1 inch closer, not with threat, but with need. I drew a breath. I set my feet on the runner, as if on a narrow bridge. I opened my hand. The key lay in my palm like a small piece of bright judgment. The mirror brightened and showed the Westline Bridge again.
Rain. The chain.
The ring. My face peeled open by grief. I had not let breathe. I lifted my eyes to the living sisters. I raised the key. I began to speak the part one had kept behind my teeth since the night when metal screamed and the sky turned white blue. My voice steadied. I formed the first sentence that would either save me or sink me. I formed the first sentence that would either save me or sink me. I said the choice was not clean. I said the choice was not brave. I said the choice was human, and it left ash in my mouth. I said I lifted the elder first because her pulse fluttered like a trapped moth. I said I felt her breath stutter, and I feared the next breath would not come. I said I screamed for the second unit. I said I saw the younger step toward the curb with her hand out. I said I could not carry 2 bodies at once. I said I promised with my eyes that I would come back. I said the world narrowed to the sound of a monitor I could not see. I said I put the elder in the cruiser and drove toward the hospital as if the road would split open. I said the Westline Bridge rose like a spine in the dark. I said my heart broke there. I said I stopped. I said I took off my ring because a promise felt heavier than steel. I said I slid it onto the chain because I wanted to live inside a chosen weight. I said I drove again. I said I tasted rubber and rain and guilt. I said I arrived and ran and shoved the doors and bled on the white tile and prayed to a God I never called by name. I said I went back. I said the second unit had already moved. I said lights spun on Ferry Street like carnival wheels. I said strangers held umbrellas. I said the younger sister stood under a blanket, very straight, very quiet, very awake. I said she looked at me, and the look entered my bones like cold. I said I could not meet it for long. I said I turned away and spoke to a logbook instead. I said I told the logbook that rain had ruined the dash drive. I said I told the logbook that I had no ring because the city had eaten it. Every word struck the wood and came back softer. Every word hung in the air like a damp cloth and pressed on the room. The father closed his eyes and listened as if he held a shell to his ear. The pastor rested his wounded hand on the birdcage and steadied the doves. Internal affairs did not move. Dr. Marrow did not move. Carter did not move. The brides did not blink. I lifted the key. I said the unit on Ferry Street holds the memory I feared. I said we will open it tonight. The father nodded once.
His jaw eased.
The right bride took one step closer. Her voice was low and clear and sharp at the edges.
You left me in the rain, she said.
Her words were not accusation. They were map. You left me because you believed my sister would die without your arms, she said. Tell me what you saw in my face when you came back. I held her eyes. I spoke without decoration. I said I saw a woman who had crossed a threshold. I said I saw anger, and I saw love that refused to kneel to anger. I said I saw a door closing inside you. I said I understood that I had placed my hand on the hinge. The mirrored arch brightened, as if a sun had moved. On the glass, the Westline Bridge shimmered and washed away. A new image rose. A chapel. Rows of wooden pews. A candle flame that leaned in a draught. A small torn page with handwriting in blue ink. Dr. Marrow read the line again. I will not forgive what I do not understand. The right bride looked at the flame on the screen, then at me. Her fingers loosened around the roses. Thorns had left neats of red on her skin. She did not wipe them away. She let them mark her like tiny signatures. The left bride touched her twin's arm with 2 fingers. The tenderness moved through the hall like warmth near a winter window. Her voice came soft and steady.
I remember the locket, she said.
I remember the mango tree. I remember your hands on the curb. I remember your breath on my hair. I remember that my name sounded safe in your mouth. I remember waking into white. I remember the chain without the ring. Her eyes lifted to mine. I do not remember the Westline Bridge, she said. You do. Tell it so I can carry it, and you can stop. My throat burned. The pastor stepped aside. The aisle opened like a quiet road. Carter spoke at last. His voice had lost command. His voice had found mercy. We will go to Ferry Street, he said. We will open the unit. But truth does not wait for locks. Truth walks on feet and breath and language. Speak what the camera cannot show. I closed my eyes and saw rain on the windshield. I saw the ring cold against my teeth when I bit the chain to loosen the clasp. I saw my hands tremble. I saw my mother's kitchen. I saw a spoon tap a pot. I saw a prayer over fire. I saw a boy who wanted to hold the whole world and never set any of it down. I opened my eyes. I spoke. I said I took the ring off because I wanted to feel like a man who had no claim. I said I put it on a chain because I wanted to feel like a man who kept one. I said I wanted to be both. I said that desire turned love into a riddle and duty into a shield. I said I let that shield stand between me and your pain. I said I hid behind forms and timestamps because paper does not look back. I said I feared your eyes. I said I feared your father's hands. I said I feared the story choosing me as its villain. I said I feared the story leaving me a hero. The room held the confession and did not spit it out. No one clapped. No one hissed. There was only the hum of the lights and the weight of lilies and the soft bird wings. Internal Affairs lowered her gaze to the case. She clicked the latches and closed it fully. She kept her hand on the handle. She did not lift it. Carter's radio came alive with a whisper. Rear door unit in position. Ready when you are. He did not answer. He looked at the father. The father looked at the twins. The twins looked at me. The reporter lowered her phone. Her shoulders dropped. Her pen moved without her eyes. A child's paper boat slid a foot down the runner and stopped where the candle drip had hardened. The right bride spoke. Bring the key to the doors, she said. Let the room see that we are not trapped by a trick. Let the room breathe. Carter nodded. He signaled to the ushers. Magnets clicked off. A cool draft entered and replaced the heavy air. Rain's smell came in clean and new. The doves rustled, as if they could smell sky. I stepped forward with the key in my hand. The metal warmed against my skin. The father followed. The twins walked behind him, shoulder to shoulder, pace matched like heartbeat to heartbeat. Internal Affairs came behind them like a shadow that knew where to stop. Dr. Marrow walked at my left side with a folder held to her chest. The pastor walked at my right with his bandaged hand open. The guests parted and made a path that felt like a verdict and a blessing in one motion. We reached the threshold. We did not step through. Thunder rolled somewhere deep, not a threat, a reminder. Carter spoke into his radio.
Clear the alley.
Hold traffic. We are moving. Unmarked cars slid away from the curb like fish, leaving a quiet reef. The rain had become a fine mist. Streetlights turned it into gold dust. Sirens muted at the corner, respectful as mourners. We formed a small procession and crossed the lot. Our shoes made small wet sounds. My mind moved ahead to Ferry Street and then back to Pine Street and then forward again like a pendulum. I felt the weight of all the names we had spoken. I felt the weight of the name we had not yet spoken. The younger twin stopped at the edge of the lot. She faced me. Her face held new lines I had never seen. Not wrinkles.
Roads.
Her voice cut the damp like a gentle blade. When we opened that unit, We open our mouths to a past that never learned silence, she said. Do not flinch when it shouts. Do not flinch when it whispers. Do not flinch when my sister cries. Do not flinch when I do not. I nodded. My throat could not trust itself. The elder twin faced the street. Her pupils widened to drink the light. She raised the dented locket and pressed it to her heart. Her breath steadied. She said one sentence. I came back for the living. The father stood between them and held both their hands. His shoulders lowered for the first time. His chest rose with a full breath.
He looked at me.
He did not smile. He did not frown. He spoke like a man testing a new bridge with his heel. Drive us.
Drive like you did that night, he said.
But do not stop under the bridge. Do not hide. Do not hand our pain to a shadow. Keep the engine running in the open and leave the doors unlocked. I nodded again. Carter tossed me the cruiser keys. Metal rang in the air and landed in my palm with a clean sound. I opened the driver door. I smelled the memory of Pine Street under the new scent of vinyl and rain. The pastor took the passenger seat. Dr. Marrow sat behind him with the folder. The father and the twins slid in and held their breath like divers before a deep line. Internal Affairs took the rear bench by the door. Carter stood outside with the unmarked unit and touched the roof twice in a code we had used on long nights. Safe.
Go.
I turned the key. The engine woke. The radio murmured. The wipers began their slow, patient work. I pulled onto the street. The hull fell behind us, and the mirrored arch became a rectangle of light in the rear view. The city opened like a wet book. Traffic lights blinked their measured language. The rain wrote new lines across the windshield. The chain on my neck touched skin and settled. The ring in my pocket pressed a warm circle. The father's hand found the twins' hands. Internal Affairs clicked the case shut again and set it on the floor. Dr. Marrow held the folder like a small animal that trusted her. The pastor whispered something that was not quite a prayer and not quite a poem. Ferry Street waited ahead, a dark line between warehouses and river. I pressed the accelerator. The car answered. The bridge lights shone to our left like a spine we would not hide beneath. The twins watched the road. Their reflections met mine in the glass. No one looked away. The rain slowed as the cruiser reached Ferry Street. Street lamps shimmered through the mist, turning puddles into mirrors of fire and gold. We stopped beside an old iron gate, rusted by years and silence. The key in my hand felt heavier than any weapon I had ever held. It was not just brass, it was memory. It was consequence. The father stepped out first. He touched the gate, whispering something between a prayer and a farewell. The twins followed, their dresses glowing faintly in the streetlight, not white now, but silvered, like ghosts learning to live again. Dr. Marrow carried the folder as if it were an infant of truth. The pastor held his hand over his heart. Even Internal Affairs had softened. Her eyes held no judgment now, only understanding. I knelt before the lock. When the key turned, the sound it made, that small click, felt like the world exhaling. Inside the storage unit, dust rose like smoke, carrying the scent of rain-soaked wood and forgotten nights. A single box sat in the center, marked with my handwriting. Pine Street evidence, do not reopen.
The father nodded.
Open it, he said. My hands shook as I lifted the lid. Inside lay the dashcam drive. The metal casing was scorched at the edges, but intact. Beneath it, my old badge, the one I turned in after the investigation. Next to it, a photograph, half-burned. Maya's smile. The twins, their arms around each other, sunlight tangled in their hair. A sound escaped me. Not a sob, not a breath, something raw. The younger sister placed her hand on mine. Her palm was warm, her touch human. You can stop carrying the bridge now, she said softly. You have crossed it. Tears blurred the lines of light. The city around us hummed faintly, as if aware that something old had ended. The father took the drive, slipped it into his pocket, and looked toward the river. He said nothing.
He did not need to.
His silence forgave more than any word could. The pastor whispered, "There is no greater prayer than truth spoken aloud." The younger twin, the one I saved, turned to her sister. They looked at each other for a long time. No words. Only years of absence, stitched together by a single glance. They embraced. And in that moment, the rain began again, light, pure, clean. I stood still, eyes closed. For the first time in years, I felt peace, not from being right, but from being real. As we drove away, the city lights stretched behind us like candles in a cathedral. Carter's voice came softly over the radio. "It's done, brother. Go home." But I did not answer. Home wasn't a place anymore. It was forgiveness. The twins' faces shimmered in the mirror, reflections no longer haunted by secrets. The father smiled faintly through his tears. Dr. Marrow pressed her folder closed and whispered, "Let it rest." When we reached the bridge, I slowed the car. The same bridge. The West Line. The chain around my neck trembled, as if it remembered. I rolled down the window and held the ring out into the wind. The metal caught the streetlight and glowed. Then I let it fall. The ring disappeared into the dark river. But somehow, it felt like it had found its way home. The last shot lingered on the rippling water. Then on the sisters, their hands joined, their faces calm. A siren wailed somewhere distant, but it no longer sounded like guilt. It sounded like release. The scene faded to black, and the last words appeared on screen. "Some promises break us, so we can learn how to keep others." If this story touched your heart, if you felt the weight of truth and love, subscribe to the channel and walk with us into the next story that waits in the rain.